In the weeks that followed, the committee laid out the details of their case.
This morning, we'll tell the story of how Donald Trump lost an election and knew he lost an election, and as a result of his loss, decided to wage an attack on our democracy.
A central question: what the president knew and when he knew it.
For a long time, people who have pursued Donald Trump tripped up on the question of whether they could prove that he knew what he was doing was wrong or that he knew what he was saying was a lie. The January 6th committee got past that by demonstrating that he was told time and time again that he did not win the election. Not by Democrats, not by the media, but by his own people.
I want to start by showing a video that tells the story of what was going on in the Trump White House on election night in November of 2020.
The Fox News Decision Desk is calling Arizona for Joe Biden. That is a big get for the Biden campaign.
Arizona's called. Do you remember that?
I do.
What do you remember happening where you were when Arizona was called?
There was surprise at the call.
After Fox News called Arizona for Biden, there was discussion about whether President Trump should say something and should declare victory. The consensus of almost all of his advisors was that he should not.
It was far too early to be making any calls like that. Ballots were still being counted. Ballots were still going to be counted for days. And it was far too early to be making any proclamation like that.
The professionals on his campaign staff are telling him, we can't claim victory. Either, you lost, or we have to at least wait and see what's going to happen. And Trump makes a choice that he wants to listen instead to Rudy Giuliani.
Were you part of any discussions about whether the president should make any sort of speech on election night?
I spoke to the president. They may have been present, but spoke to the president several times that night.
Rudy Giuliani's advice was very different than that of Trump's political advisors.
His personal lawyer, Giuliani, tells Trump, keep fighting. We will have a legal crusade, a political crusade to keep you in power. Trump loves the idea.
Rudy Giuliani is one of the most prominent figures in American politics in the last 25 years, who is remembered fondly for his leadership post 9/11.
But over the years, he drifted towards Donald Trump, towards being someone that would be essentially a yes man to Donald Trump and some of his worst impulses.
And on election night, Giuliani insisted Trump should fight.
The president ignores the sound advice that he's getting from Bill Stepien, from the political professionals around him, and he's listening to one voice that is telling him something different, and that's Giuliani saying, you should go out there and declare victory.
And did anybody disagree with your message?
Yes.
Who was that?
The president disagreed with that. He thought I was wrong. He told me so, and that they were gonna, go in a, he was gonna go in a different direction.
I think the most dangerous speech that Donald Trump ever gave was not the one that he gave on January 6th. I think it's the speech that he gave at 2:30 in the morning, the night of the election.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
Trump knew that the trends looked bad. Trump knew that there were hundreds of thousands of votes still to be counted. And he came out and he said, frankly, we did win the election.
We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay?
In the years since, Trump has claimed that he believed what he said that night.
I saw what happened. I watched that election, and I thought the election was over at 10 o'clock in the evening.
But according to the committee, his claims of fraud were part of a well-established plan.
The moment when he said, frankly, I won this election, was telegraphed many, many times. And throughout the campaign of 2020, he repeatedly cast doubt on the legitimacy of the outcome, cast doubt on absentee ballots, etc.
As early as April 2020, Mr. Trump claimed that the only way he could lose an election would be as a result of fraud.
The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that. It's the only way we're going to lose this election.
This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
For the January 6th committee, it was crucial evidence of Trump's intent.
He makes numerous speeches and TV comments and TV interviews.
You're going to see corruption like you've never seen. You're going to see a rigged election.
It'll be the greatest rigged election in history. It'll be the greatest fraud ever perpetrated.
It's all a big fraud.
And it's a crooked deal. It's a rigged deal. New ballots are coming out that are thrown in garbage cans with the name Trump on it.
This was part of this scheme of getting his supporters sensitized to the fact that there's going to be some fraud here.
Because the only way they're going to win is by a rigged election. I really believe that.
This is a pattern for Trump. He has done this every step of the way through his career, long before politics.
My name's Donald Trump, and I'm the largest real estate developer in New York.
When The Apprentice lost an Emmy to The Amazing Race, he claimed that the Emmy contest was rigged.
Amazing Race winning an Emmy again is a total joke. The Emmys have no credibility. The Emmys are all politics. That's why The Apprentice never won.
The public is smart. They know it's a con game.
I have just called President Obama to congratulate him on his victory.
He claimed that the election was rigged in 2012 when Mitt Romney, whom he had endorsed, lost to Barack Obama.
This election is a total sham and a travesty. We are not a democracy. More reports of voting machines switching Romney votes to Obama. Let's fight like hell and stop this great and disgusting injustice. We can't let this happen. We should march on Washington.
Every step along the way, anything he has ever lost is because somebody else has cheated and stolen it from him.
Fox News can now project that Texas Senator Ted Cruz has won Iowa.
Ted Cruz wins the Republican contest here in Iowa.
The big question now, how is Donald Trump going to handle a loss?
The state of Iowa should disqualify Ted Cruz from the most recent election on the basis that he cheated, a total fraud.
You have tweeted that Senator Ted Cruz stole the Iowa election.
Everything about it was disgraceful. It was a fraud as far as I was concerned. And
Knowing what we know now, I think you would go back to February 1st of 2016.
It's a total voter fraud, you think of it. And actually, I came in probably first, if you think about it.
That episode was a bright red blinking light foreshadowing everything that was to come.
The portrait that both prosecutors and the January 6th committee are trying to paint is that Trump knows what's going on. That this wasn't something spontaneous, this wasn't something that the president truly believed, that it was all part of an overall and illegal, according to prosecutors and the committee, strategy to remain in power unlawfully.
And in court filings, prosecutors have said Trump's statements are evidence of the criminal conspiracy at the heart of the case.
They demonstrate the defendant's common plan of falsely blaming fraud for election results he does not like, as well as his motive, intent, and plan to obstruct the certification of the 2020 election results and illegitimately retain power.
Intent is the whole ballgame. The jury is making an evaluation of that. That's the most difficult thing to prove. Not impossible, but it is the most difficult thing to prove.
Robert Ray was an independent counsel who investigated President Bill Clinton and helped get Trump acquitted in his first Senate impeachment trial.
Our system requires that a jury of 12 unanimously, meaning all of them, all 12 of them, find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
To try to show the president's intent, the committee focused on his own statements after election night.
Although he publicly claimed that he had won the election, privately he admitted that Joe Biden would take over as president.
I remember maybe a week after the election was called, I popped into the Oval just to give the president the headlines and see how he was doing. And he was looking at the TV and he said, "Can you believe I lost to this effing guy?"
At the same time that President Trump was acknowledging privately that he had lost the election, he was hearing that there was no evidence of fraud or irregularities sufficient to change the outcome.
His campaign team, and this included his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, went to him after the election was declared. And they didn't just rebut the claims of voter fraud. They explained to him their analysis of why he lost. They showed him the numbers, state by state, in the swing states.
I made this case, I know Hope Hicks and others did to him, which was, you should kind of make this a victory lap, go around the country, talk about what you accomplished, and you're gonna be in a great place in 2024 to win the presidency back.
But then you had Rudy Giuliani, who was whispering in his ear what Trump wanted to hear. Trump likes the people who tell him what he wants to hear. And he picked, in effect, Rudy Giuliani in order to go down the road of challenging the election.
There is strong evidence that this was an election that in at least 3 or 4 states and possibly 10, it was stolen. Bringing in 100,000 ballots in garbage cans, and every single one of them was for Biden.
The federal indictment alleges that by the middle of November, Trump's conspiracy to overturn the election was underway.
November 14th, 2020 is an important date in the federal indictment of Donald Trump. It is the moment when Donald Trump said, Rudy Giuliani is the only one who's providing me with a plausible path forward, and I'm going to take it.
Look, you can fight it all you want. The reality is dead people voted. Over 300,000 ballots were counted in secret.
Rudy Giuliani was central to a lot of these schemes, framing them, orchestrating them, directing other people, being in on the communications. And so once Trump made a decision to defer to Rudy Giuliani as the person who was setting the tone and giving people their talking points for what the approach was, that's when he decided to go after these nutty theories.
8,021 ballots from dead people. Mail-in ballots for dead people. We're checking the records of the cemeteries around Philadelphia.
During that period, Giuliani and Trump would repeat dozens of false allegations. And the committee believed they had evidence it wasn't an honest mistake.
One of the things the committee did that was critical was putting together this timeline in which they showed very clearly the president would be told one thing one day, not true, don't say that, and he would go right back out and say it the next day anyway. That's really important toward, I think, establishing intent to lie, intent to defraud.
Each ballot went 3 times. Here's ballot number 1. Here it is a second time, third time. Next ballot.
I told the president myself that these allegations about ballots run through the machine several times, it was not true.
In several counties in Georgia, there is clear evidence that tens of thousands of votes were switched from President Trump to Biden.
Well, Mr. President, we did a hand retally of all the ballots and compared that to what the machine said, and it came up with virtually the same result.
In Detroit, a vote dump came in unexpectedly. I'll tell you what's wrong: voter fraud.
And then he raised the big vote dump in Detroit, and I said, there's no indication of fraud in Detroit.
Over 10,300 ballots in Georgia were cast by individuals who died prior to the election.
The actual number were 2 people that were dead that voted.
You have Dominion, which those machines are fixed, they're rigged.
You can press Trump and the vote goes to Biden.
I specifically raised the Dominion voting machines. I saw absolutely zero basis for the allegations, and I told them that it was crazy stuff.
Stretching the truth in a campaign ad or on a debate stage is one thing. But when you are using that lie to subvert the democratic process and to convince people that they need to overturn the election, now you're talking about conspiracy. And that's what he's charged with.
Trump wouldn't talk to the committee, but he did talk to NBC News.
The most senior lawyers in your own administration and on your campaign told you that after you'd lost more than 60 legal challenges, that it was over. Why did you ignore them and decide to listen to a new outside group?
Because I didn't respect them.
You'd hired
lawyers,
them.
Sure, but that doesn't mean, you hire them, you never met these people, you get a recommendation, they turn out to be rhinos or they turn out to be not so good. In many cases, I didn't respect them, but I did respect others. I respected many others that said the election was rigged.
Were you calling the shots, though, Mr. President, ultimately?
As to whether or not I believed it was rigged, oh, sure. It was my decision.
One of the allegations in the charges against Trump is that he used lies to carry out his criminal conspiracy.
The defendant's knowingly false statements were integral to his criminal plans.
But to the president's defenders, his statements about the 2020 election, true or not, should be protected under the Constitution.
You will see Trump and those who defend him essentially using the free speech defense and saying that these are just words. And in the end, it's not a crime in America to lie to the American public, even though Donald Trump lied to the American public a lot.
This is a central area of the president's defense. He does have First Amendment rights, and particularly as president, and trying to turn words into criminal conduct is a very slippery road for the prosecution under the First Amendment. And in the event of a conviction, I can guarantee you this will be point one in the brief on appeal.
Lying to the government is not protected by the First Amendment. Obstructing justice is not protected by the First Amendment.
Ken White is a prominent criminal defense lawyer and a First Amendment expert.
And so here the government's position is going to be, we are not going after him for, what he said on the news. That's not the crime. The crime is he specifically pushed to derail specific government functions.